Hi, I'm Kevin Lee with the eMarketing Association. Most of the folks will know me as my day job, running Did It for many years, digital first marketing agency that does everything starting from search, where we started out through social. But after 11 acquisitions, pretty much everything. I also run a nonprofit called Giving Forward, which uses cause marketing to generate money for other nonprofits. I'm super excited today to have Dennis Yu with me. He and I have known each other for many, many years. And I think of you as a marketer, a business person, and increasingly a philosopher. You're quite
Yeah.
philosophical, and often your posts have a philosophical element to them. So before we dive into digital marketing, please share your personal philosophy and how it relates to marketing and business.
Well, Kevin, I've always felt that salespeople are increasingly less successful because they're obviously trying to sell you. So I thought marketers, like being with e-marketing associations, one level above because you're creating value. But even marketers are being less trusted because they're out there trying to market. So I think teachers are one level above marketers because a marketer who has authority and is providing value and is showing you how to do something step by step is better than someone just trying to convince you to buy a product or service. But then one level above a teacher is a practitioner who is helping create jobs and has a bigger mission and is helping people step by step in an apprenticeship way be able to do the thing that they're doing. And then one level above that are people that run programs of teachers and practitioners like what you're doing for many years. Like I know we've spoken a lot of the same conferences. So I view this as kind of the progression of what used to be just a couple channels like yellow pages and TV up to many, many, many channels where there's just so much stuff out there that we have to break through and have authority. And the way you have authority is that you teach through your example. So it doesn't come off as selling. So it's actually creating value. And where you are appealing, you're using inception, just like we talked about when we were in New York, right? When the COVID thing happened, on how you look at the instead of talking to your customer directly, you look at who they respect, and then the people they respect that they respect, you market with them. So if you're marketing with them, then everyone else is going to follow you in the same way. You know, Nike, when they started out, when they were nothing, they grew by giving out free shoes to the top drug dealers or pimps, because then all the people that follow them would have to follow suit, right? And so I think that that's my philosophy on the evolution of marketing, is that you say anything except for the fact that you're a marketer, right? Because then, oh, you're a marketer, you're gonna try to market to me, right?
Right, right. Absolutely. Well, yeah, certainly we've all, as well as hundreds of others, have shared wisdom with many conference attendees. You're way ahead of me on the number of conferences and events, though. I think I'm at about 550, and I think the last time I looked at your stats, you were like well over 700 or 800 events that you'd spoken at.
Yeah.
So
You don't want to
uh,
be doing what I've been doing. I think you're smart. I think like the webinars, this kind of format, so much better than flying, but I love meeting people. I was in Minneapolis last week with the National Auctioneers Association. And I just love meeting people and I love learning and I love seeing what they're doing. I learned so much more by spending time with people like you and seeing what other folks are doing. I was at Jake Bajor, Seth, just a couple of days ago in LA, and he and his team have something like 3 million TikTok followers and they're generating billions of views and doing stuff for McDonald's and other companies. I wouldn't get that unless I was meeting them.
right, right. No, obviously, finding that right balance between virtual meetings and in-person meetings is going to be key over the next couple of years as we try to figure out how to continue to sort of um, share our knowledge, but also learn at the same time. So it's pretty key.
Yeah. And I think it's
Um,
incredible that you and I, we met the traditional way. We met at conferences. I want to say, when was the first PubCon that you went to? It's like
it must have
15 plus
been
years.
it must have been one of the first pub cons actually, because I was at the first or maybe second Search Engine Strategies conference, which was long
Yeah.
before PubCon. So I'd have to dig it back up to try to figure out what the first PubCon was. But I mean, PubCon was essentially a spin out of Webmaster World, right? And
That's right.
so those of us who hung out in Webmaster World wanted to
And
get an
forums.
opportunity to see each other in real life, right? So
Yeah.
that was really where PubCon evolved out of.
Yeah.
From the perspective of sort of our audience and where we've evolved from having started in search engine marketing, or at least I wouldn't say started, but we were early, and I was traditional marketing before search, but I really sort of fell in love with search marketing pretty early on. Is marketers who sort of get spoiled by search engine marketing, they are essentially focused primarily on harvesting existing demand, right? So if there's somebody out there and they want a size 12 men's leather steel-toed Timberland work boot, right? They know exactly what they want, and Timberland's going to be able to sell it to them.
Yeah.
But you can't often live exclusively on harvesting existing demand, and of course, CPC is high, and organic SEO becomes increasingly more difficult. So you need the world of Facebook and social media and other marketing channels to put the right message in front of the right people at the right time to create the demand, as opposed to harvesting it. So, what's your secret sauce there? Because you made that transition quite a while back to sort of say, okay, search is great, but we need to figure out how to create demand.
Yeah, I was dragged kicking and screaming. Look, I'm a search engine engineer, right? I built the internal analytics at Yahoo, for those of you guys who remember way back in the day. And I got fat and lazy off of bidding on branded keywords and off of traffic that was bottom of funnel, right? And so I thought search was so easy because you could just pay your way there and then rent the traffic and then SEO your way for all these other kinds of terms. And when people started doing things like videos and podcasts and things that were showing their face, I didn't want to show my face. Like, I'm an internal marketer for a big company. I don't want to be showing my face. I'm not a Kevin Lee of Did It. I don't want to be a public figure. I just want to write words. I just want to build landing pages using tools, and I want to hide behind the scenes. I don't want to be out there. I'm not Gary Vaynerchuk, right? But then I realized for all the other businesses out there, the ones that were succeeding, they needed to have a face, because if it's on Facebook, you need a face. And if it's on social media, you need a story, and stories come from people. So there needs to be video. And so I found all kinds of ways to not do video. For example, I would take my phone or video camera and I would video other people. For example, I've got all these cameras here. This is a Sony A7R IV with the 14-24 Sigma lens. And I would go out and take, pictures and videos like a tourist, because I didn't want to be on the video. Because like, oh no, I'm not the CEO of the company. I'm not a celebrity. We need to hire a spokesperson for that. And then I realized, it took me almost 20 years to realize this. You're way faster because you already understand podcasts. You're well-spoken. That for me to be successful as a marketer, even if I'm not the CEO, even if I'm just the manager of marketing inside another company, for me to grow, I need to be around other people that are pros. Because I could read blog posts and I could watch YouTube videos and I could go to conferences and sit in the audience. But unless I actually see Kevin Lee of Did It in person, unless I get to meet these other people, I'm not keeping up as fast as I could. So in order for me to advance my career selfishly, I had to learn how to make 1-minute videos off of my phone. I had to learn how to do this for my clients. So those of you guys who are running agencies, you're consultants, you've got to learn to pick up your phone and record people doing 1-minute videos. I did one 2 days ago. Had a whole bunch of people in our private coaching call, and they were learning to do 15-second videos saying, I'm a San Diego real estate agent. I would love to help you find your next home. Just like that on Twitter. And then we took that as a video, posted it on Twitter, ran an ad on it on Twitter. How long do you think it took? The whole process to create the post, which is a Twitter video, and create the ad on Twitter. How long do you think it took?
I've seen you do it live, so I know it's like under 5 minutes.
Yeah, it took 2 minutes. And then we took that same video we made and we posted to Facebook and we boosted it. And we posted to Instagram and we boosted it. And then we posted it to also to other places like their LinkedIn and to their website and all that. And then we're running ads, right, against luxury San Diego real estate, whatever it is. And we run to that webpage that has that video on it. And it says, I'm Dr. Kim Grimes, and I'd like to help you do this, this, and this, right? Our friend Veronica Cruz, she's a Chicago chiropractor. Her website's complete garbage. She was paying this agency all sorts of money. And she serves Spanish-speaking folks who have back pain. She's a Spanish chiropractor, right? And I met her at a conference, and her website was terrible. I mean, it just had a scowling face of her. I don't know why she put that there. Maybe that's the only photo she had. And then it just had 5 or 6 pages on the website saying back pain, pregnancy, all the other kinds of conditions, car accident, arthritis, right? Which is what you'd expect. But it was just cookie cutter content that she probably paid someone $10 on Fiverr, or her agency, charge her all this money, but just outsource it to Fiverr, Upwork, or whatever. And I said, this is not going to attract any clients. We looked at her analytics that had no traffic, no GMB, no links, no social media, no nothing. And then I said, you know what? We're going to fix this entire thing in 6 minutes. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to walk downstairs because it's too noisy with all the people around here at this conference. And I'm going to pull out my phone and I'm going to ask you a series of questions just like this. And I did. I asked her, how did you become a chiropractor? What was your story? And what do you say to women who are pregnant? You know, can babies have chiropractic adjustments? And what are the causes of a migraine? And she said all these things in Spanish. I don't speak Spanish. She answered all those things in Spanish. I had it right here on my phone inside the Photos app here, right here on the Photos app. This gets uploaded then to Fiverr. I had Fiverr and our team cut it up into, remember, we just did the entire thing in 6 minutes. Took little 15, 30-second snippets of her answers to all those different questions and then put those up on her website. So when someone types in, you know, back pain Chicago or something like that, then we send traffic on paid and organic to that web page where it says, hi, I'm Veronica Cruz and I specialize, you know, let me tell you something about back pain and blah, 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 blah. Come see me. Here's my phone number. Right. So at the very end, I asked her all these questions. And the very last question I asked her was, now encourage the audience to come talk to you. And then she says, I'm Veronica Cruz and this is where my office is and this is my phone number. And I said, no, one more time with more energy. Say, I want to help you resolve your pain. I love treating my patients. I love them so much, right? I'm Spanish speaking. I take care. And she said it all in Spanish, right? So we did it 2 or 3 times. You got her to say it right. Now, Kevin, let me ask you, if you were Spanish speaking and you were in Chicago and you were looking for a chiropractor and you did a search and you went to these different websites and each of these websites looks the same because it just has like this picture of a doctor that's like a yearbook photo kind of, right? And it says some generic stuff about back pain and why chiropractic is good. All these sites that are like this. And then you see her site where it says, hi, I'm Veronica. So glad you're here. You have a question about back pain? Let me talk to you about blah, 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 blah about back pain. Come talk to me. You know, here's my phone number. We're open, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. We wear masks, whatever it might be. Which of these are you more likely to talk to?
Well, the trust building of an authentic person is like 10 times faster than the headshot from your yearbook. I mean, it's just, that's the one you gravitate towards.
So we've literally done that thousands of times now. And people will say, oh, it's because Dennis is using his website because he's linking to him because I have a DR63. So I'm pushing them juice and all that. I'm not trying to use, gray hat SEO tag. I'm linking to them. I'm writing articles about them, of course, right? But we're simply collecting their stories and we're equipping these young adults who are half my age to be able to collect cell phone videos that we then just run through Fiverr or Canva or these other sorts of tools and literally just push that across their website, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all that. And there's a whole process. And I have my training guide over here. We have a whole process on how we do all this, which you've seen. In fact, I've got a copy of this open for you that we made for you, right, to share with people. And that's literally what it is. It's not software. It's a process to be able to collect the video. And I believe anyone who's in a business, they're going to do so much. If it's a service or people kind of based business, they're going to do so much better. Even if their hair is terrible or they're not well spoken or they don't like how their voice sounds, they're going to do so much better just making short videos. That's literally what I've learned in the last few years. Drag kicking and screaming. I didn't want to do it. I don't like how I sound. I've been losing my hair. I'm still making video.
Well, I love your Kickstart program, right? The fact that you can have somebody sort of fix all the problems out of the gate pretty quickly, right? Obviously, once that's done and you've sort of got your new foundation built, a lot of folks don't know what to do from an editorial calendar perspective or how frequently to create new content or when to rotate out ads, right? One thing we didn't have to deal with in search was creative burnout, right? I mean, the same ad was there forever and it continued to perform because that person only really needed a new lawn sprinkler once every 5 years. So they wouldn't see the same ad more than once. But in social, if you're starting to boost posts and you sort of found that perfect post boosting audience, you might need to rotate stuff out. But then people are like, well, how frequently should I rotate it out? And should I be very different or should I be sort of the same? It's like King of the Hill. So how do you walk people through that planning process? That
is a common question. I have an answer that I think it won't blow your mind, but I think it'll blow most people's minds. So what is the difference between a publisher, like a New York Times, where every day there's news? So even if there's not news, you have to make up some news, right? A publisher, like you turn on the TV, there's always some kind of thing. You got to publish every day. There's a calendar. versus a rock band like Guns N' Roses, right? I saw Guns N' Roses. I saw Axl Rose sing Sweet Child of Mine on stage, even though that was Appetite for Destruction 1987. That was 30 some years ago. He made these songs a long time ago, but he's not publishing new songs every day. He's making royalties off of the stuff that we call the greatest hits. So what's the difference between a rock band who has greatest hits versus a publisher who has to always have news? You turn on TV, there has to be something on. What's the difference between those two?
Just what their payback looks like. I mean, publisher needs to keep something fresh all the time, because yesterday's news is yesterday's news. For Axl Rose, yesterday's news is still important to the audience, right? So a publisher needs to keep their audience engaged with fresh content. Axl Rose is lucky enough that people want to keep hearing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah. And so look at the content that we have. And I'd like to say in most businesses, unless you're in the news business or you're doing like flash sales or something where the content's always, stuff's always changing, 80% of your content should be evergreen. And even if you're doing things like here's your Christmas sale or fall sale or whatever, you still have stories. When you tell stories of people, those are evergreen. So I love being able to focus on the greatest hits, and then you don't have an issue of burnout. A lot of you guys have children, and they may like Finding Nemo, and they play. How many times do they play Finding Nemo or play that? They just, there's no burnout on that, right?
Yeah.
But if it's sales driven kind of content, if it's buy my stuff, then people will tune out. But the frequency that you can run on good content, and people say good content with, they have their way of vaguely defining it, but we define it as stories that are about people, that are why, how, and what, building the funnel. So you could put stuff out there on Facebook. You initially get that kickstart, like we talked about, telling some different stories, different angles. But as you start to interview your patients or clients or employees or team members or partners, as you start to do things like podcasts, you share expertise, that just naturally creates more content. And then, of course, about remarketing, where if somebody saw this one story of this chiropractor, then they want to hear more about the chiropractor. So you remarket to them because you have the universal pixel that has all the pixels that fire on them. You gather their email address. Now you can email them again, which I consider remarketing, even though it technically isn't. And then you have the algorithm that is now targeting for you and figuring out who is the next person to send that ad to. And thus, you don't have to worry about all this targeting and making lots and lots of ads. If you look at our campaigns from today, not just on Facebook, but on pretty much everywhere, Google to Twitter, LinkedIn, our campaigns today versus 5 years ago, they're way simpler, because we're letting the system through bid optimization figure out, who do we sub-target to, and then how much do we pay for that lead? We say seek conversions, seek engagement, seek leads. And you guys adjust for us. We just have to put content in the machine. So that's been the big shift. So we're not worried about frequency burnout. We're not doing frequency capping. We're not worrying about CTR declining. We're just putting more things in the machine and just allowing the machine to do the work for us. And I think that is a huge shift in what used to be manually. We had to keep loading more content every week, creative refresh. Oh, this ad burned out. Every week we've got to put more content in the machine. I just don't see that working anymore. I'd love to see what you think, Kevin, because we see this king of the hill effect where once we have a winner, not just in search, but even on Facebook, that winner will tend to stay on. And so we're constantly trying to unseat that winner, which is a greatest hits model, as opposed to every day we're just going to check the box and tweet 5 times and, social media post this many times. But the greatest hits model, I believe, has become even more effective, because the more content there is, the more competition there is, the more CPCs are going up, the more the greatest hits become even more valuable. Do you see that too? Like, these winners will win even bigger. That's why fake news is bigger. That's why you see certain influencers going from nothing to 20 million followers on TikTok instantly. It only happens because there's more people and because there's more content. So the greatest hits model is winning more than the publisher model increasingly.
Yeah, I mean, we see it as well. We obviously want to encourage clients to create and co-create new content all the time, because you do want to eventually knock the king of the hill off and have a new king of the hill, right? If you can pull that off. But to your point, the algorithms are actually rewarding the king of the hill, even perhaps more than they should. And you're just stuck with it, right? So the algorithm may not give your next piece of creative an equal chance to win, right? And so your
Yeah,
king of the hill evergreen content, even if in reality, had they started at the same place at the same time, you
that's
might have
true.
had another winner. The
Yeah,
algos are starting to really prefer the large data set, right? That says
yeah.
this was king of the hill and it's still king of the hill. So I
Well,
guess to some extent it's a bit of a disincentive to create the new content, but one does need to try the new content, especially if you're going to try a new audience, right? If you're going to try a new audience and you're not
yeah.
sure if that king of the hill message will resonate with the different audience, then that's a great opportunity to try something a little bit different, at least in our opinion.
Well, what we've so you and I know from running really big PPC campaigns that we would force the algorithm on in terms of ad rotation, or we'd have single keyword ad groups scaled to the moon. And we do the same thing on Facebook where we just create a ton of campaigns. But now we find that if there's enough conversions, 50 conversions per ad set per week for a particular campaign, we can actually run untargeted, which is crazy. Now, unless you're in alcohol or tobacco or other sorts of areas where healthcare, or you're selling stuff to senior citizens where they have to be at least 65 or things like that, we find that for our biggest clients, we're not running any targeting at all. Does that sound crazy? Like with
Yeah,
Rosetta Stone,
I
right? The
saw
language company.
I saw Frank Kern do his inadvertent experiment in that same exact way, right? Where he was sort of
Uh,
shocked because he forgot to turn targeting on, and
uh-huh.
Facebook basically took care of it for him, right? Figured it out,
Yeah.
and it still worked. Maybe not quite to the same level, but for those of the sort of marketing mad scientists who are in there, either discovering things on purpose or by accident, it really is fascinating to sort of see how what works changes over time.
Because I built a career basically running super targeted ads by demonstrating the kinds of things that you could do to be able to do like really creative micro targeting and running ads where we target people who work at a particular company and we email a list of 20 people. So only those people see it and things like that. But what we found now is that if we are pushing enough of the signal through, so Facebook's conversion API because of iOS 14, custom audiences, offline audiences, other ways to feed that signal in, we don't have to run targeting because the system's going to figure out exactly who that sub audience is. So you might think that that's the audience of entrepreneurs or people who live in New York or whatever it might be, but the system's actually sub targeting to some other audience. And I find that most marketers, they mean well, but they try to say, like one of our clients, United States Concealed Carry Association, they sell insurance for people who have handguns. And we said, well, the prototype, the guy's name is Buddy, and he's 30 to 45. He's a male and he's got a family, he's got 2 kids. And we'd like tell this whole story about this persona, right? So in our ads, we'd narrow all the way down to this persona and run the ad for this persona, which is what you're supposed to do, right? But then we found that by running untargeted, we did way better because when we started to limit by saying male only, there's females that have handguns, right? Or there are males that are under 30 that have families. There's like, yes, we have our core demographic, but if the system already, if Facebook and Google, because of the way we set up our tag manager and our Google Analytics and our what we call digital plumbing, if we set that all up, we're passing through email custom audiences, we're integrating our CRM. If we're passing all that data through, the system is going to be able to find exactly who those people are. And we don't need to try to force it into the persona. So when we force into the persona, we're putting handcuffs on the algorithm to not be able to go outside that circle. And that's a realization for me because I realized, oh my goodness, the system can play better chess than I can. The system can, what value do I have in showing all the cool targeting that we can do in the social networks and all the cool techniques I have? Remember when Facebook had Power Editor? Remember when there are all these different tools? And now I realize, you know what? I don't need that because if the system's doing that, then where do I add value? It's in creating the content and collecting the content and eliciting the story. And if you're an agency owner or you're head of marketing, that's where you got to go.
Right. And actually that's more fun than trying to be, completely immersed in restricting the scale of your campaign, which you thought was a good thing because you were micro targeting, but then you ended up, hurting yourself as a result. So that's great advice. One thing that I'd also love to get your point of view on is a lot of B2B marketers think that, oh, well, when it comes to social media, yeah, I'll do LinkedIn, or I can certainly maybe do YouTube and use some targeting levers there. But I don't feel like Facebook, for example, is a place where B2B marketing is expected, right,
Yeah.
by the
Yeah.
consumer, because the person's in a different mode. But other than telling the person, well, you're selling to a human, and humans actually also spend time, in different places. What's the sort of way of getting the people over that? And then if they say, okay, yeah, sure, let's do Facebook, what are
Yeah.
some tricks with regards to B2B? Because it's
Yeah.
sometimes more, especially if even the client thinks their industry is boring,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
We won't talk about which B2B industries are boring, but there's a lot where we might say like, okay, this is going to be a tough one to create content.
Yeah.
So how do you get people jazzed and then kickstarted into using Facebook in particular as a B2B marketer?
Yeah. So Kevin, let me address that in two angles. One's a strategic angle and one's a tactical angle. So the strategic angle, like you mentioned, is about relationships and people buy from people. And from B2B, you're trying to drive these leads to turn into sales. You run through, your Salesforce CRM, qualified one, marketing qualified, sales qualified, all that stuff through different stages. And it's through the trust, as you guys know, like, and trust. People attend a webinar, they meet you at a trade show. It's always about personal relationships. So when you tell stories, not just the CEO, but other people and customers, and you're providing knowledge in a 3-stage funnel, which is, Facebook has the awareness, consideration, conversion. Google has the same phases. Twitter has the same phases. LinkedIn, run ads, awareness, consideration, conversion. You have to create content that way because you're going to generate more warm leads, which generates more content, which helps your SEO, which builds your list and all those kinds of things. So it's just better to talk to warm leads than it is to talk to just random sorts of people or cold call them or cold email them. And there's nothing wrong with cold emailing if that's what you want to do. But the idea of social media won't work for me. Facebook won't work for me because we're in a boring B2B industry and we're not sports, media, and entertainment, right? Well, the algorithm knows what all those different pockets are. So you're not trying to become Jake Paul. You're trying to reach exactly your audience, and the algorithm will do that if you put the right signal in there. So that's the strategy. Tactically, the way you execute that is this. First is you start at the bottom of the funnel. You're not trying to build this giant audience. Because if you try to pollute yourself by getting 10,000 followers on your page or just trying to get 1 million views, well, you're going to end up having cat photos that win, and your system will end up promoting this stuff. And that's not going to generate the kinds of leads and sales, not the kind of deals that you want for B2B. So you start at the bottom, which pushes in a high quality signal. So what's the best quality signal? Remarketing. So if you have your Facebook pixel that's tied into your tag manager, then you're going to remarket against anyone who's been to any one of your key assets. And then you have a site-wide 28-day target of anyone who's on the website. And then you have your email segmented through your Marketo or HubSpot or whatever it is, where you have these different lists. So you're going to use your web and email audiences, bottom of funnel, for Facebook for remarketing. Thus, anyone who has been to a landing page, anyone who's become a lead, anyone who's watched a video, anyone who's done anything with you on any other channel other than Facebook, then the next 24 hours, the next 28 days, they're going to see more content with you. So if you have remarketing audiences, let me ask you, how can Facebook not work for you? Isn't that basically free money?
As long as your audience is big enough, right, to meet the minimum.
As long as
right?
it's big enough.
Yeah, that's the key. Obviously, startups in B2B have a challenge where they've got a completely blank slate. So they'll probably want to, use other channels to build that audience first. And as soon as they reach critical mass, I think they should absolutely consider Facebook.
Yeah. So the bottom of the funnel is where we start first. If they have remarketing audiences, if they have a list, if they're promoting a webinar with a joint venture partner, if they're exhibiting at a conference, like anywhere where there's some kind of existing signal that we can pull in because they have an audience, they have an existing audience of customers, so then we can create lookalike audiences. That's the kind of stuff we want to use on Facebook. But guess what? Wouldn't you want to do the same thing on LinkedIn? Wouldn't you want to do the same thing on Instagram and YouTube and whatnot? It's the exact same strategy that you use on Facebook as you do with any of the other channels except for search, because search is they're typing in whatever it is, industrial piping or something like that, or fix my broken toilet right now. Well, that's a very clear intent that they have that broken toilet they want to fix right now. You're not going to try to funnel them all the way through. They just want someone right now at that time. That's the only time you're going to get that signal. But outside of that search directed intent, anything that's relationship oriented, where it takes time, especially in B2B, because you have software, you're selling services, there's consulting, maybe you're a startup and you want to get people excited about the new program that you have for HIPAA compliant software. I don't know, whatever it is that you have that you think is boring. It's definitely interesting for people who are in your customer base that they're struggling with you're solving their problems. But the thing is that if you don't have to have all that crazy kind of targeting. I mean, LinkedIn, you can target by job title and where they work, which is fantastic. But then you have, the traffic costs more. It's $10 a day minimum. Cost per click bids. I mean, you get that thing down to $5 a click, maybe if you do really well. It's just really expensive. So you could do that. But I find Facebook is a great place to initially start, even if you're a startup and you don't have those different audiences, because then you move to that second level where you're trying to generate leads. You're trying to generate conversations. Maybe you don't have the audience. So you're moving up here and you have some kind of webinar.
Yeah,
People who sign up and attend the webinar, you're going to remarket to them. You use Facebook lead ads to get people to the webinar, to your asset, to your chat bot, so you can collect their email address, right? Or, people come, or you kick off your search campaigns and you have these people that are coming through, and those people that don't buy, which is like 98% of people, assuming you even have a 2% conversion, that's 98% of the people that you paid all this money to, $15 cost per click or whatever it is. Now you're going to remarket to them on all the other networks. So the stronger these other funnels are of driving sales, the stronger your Facebook's going to be. I like to think of Facebook as adding an extra 20 to 30% on what you have. Then if that's working, then you start using lookalike audiences. You start creating content that like short little videos and things like that. Your landing page conversion increases. Then you can scale it up on the ad side. That's really where the power is on Facebook. If there's 50 conversions a week, you can scale that thing to the moon, depending on what the size of the market is, what you're limited by, the total audience competition. But that's really where the power is on Facebook, because you got the 50 conversions a week. All you have to do is turn the budget up, provided your audience doesn't burn out, the size of your market doesn't burn out.
Right. What I like best about your prior answer, because there was a lot of great stuff in there, but for the startup, right, a JV, a joint venture, is you're basically borrowing a non-competitive but similar audience, right? Somebody else basically has the audience you want, or maybe 80% of it is overlap. If you can do those deals, right, that lets you catapult out of the starting gate really fast.
Well, give me an example of that, because a lot of people say JV, but they think it's like internet marketers that are all trying to co-sell their software, take turns, called the syndicate. So one of our agencies serves doctors, right? And so this agency produces lots of content on what do doctors need to do, and GMB and HIPAA and all that kind of stuff, right? The stuff that you would imagine that doctors need to do, that agency's servicing. But then we got a client who is a manufacturer of cosmetic lasers to do, skin resurfacing and tattoo removal and liposuction and all these sorts of things, right? The equipment manufacturer. And by doing the SEO and PPC and digital marketing for the equipment manufacturer, guess who their audience base is?
The same guys, right?
The people we want to reach.
Yeah.
So then we do a webinar together. And the funny thing is, this Lutronics, the name of the manufacturer, you can go reach out to them if you're an agency. It doesn't matter. It's all based on relationships. I have a good relationship with the CEO, so you could try. Like, I don't mind mentioning, like, a lot of agencies, like, I'm not going to tell you who it is. No, who it is, Lutronic. And so they were paying other agencies to create crappy marketing material so that if you bought one of these lasers, for $200,000, you have to get enough patients every month to be able to pay the cost of that laser. Right. So if you buy a laser, you need good marketing so that you can generate another 6-7 patients every month to be able to pay for that. And so the marketing on that wasn't very good. And I said, we can really help those. We can help, because if we can show that there's a clear marketing path that's even better than what they have, more people are going to buy these $200,000 lasers. Right. So by doing webinars and training and all that, that's great for the client. So they're paying us to do that. And it's also great for us because we show them how to do it. We say, here it is, step by step. Here's how you optimize your GMB. Here's how you set up your Facebook ads. Here's how you do this other stuff. Here it is. You can hire people to do it. You can go to Fiverr and do it. Oh, by the way, and then they reach out to us saying, oh, can you guys do that for us? Well, actually, yeah, we can. Right. So everybody wins. That's what I mean by a JV. Who are the other people that are not directly competitive, but they have the audience that you want to reach? How do you partner with them? How do you create value for them? I'd even do it for free.
Right. No, I mean, it's really, it creates such a big win-win. I'm familiar enough with those types of equipment markets, because those lasers are on lease, right? And you don't want the person who leased it to default on it because they couldn't bring in enough patients. So they really need, they both have a vested interest in their joint success. And I think that's more than the typical, more than the typical alliance, right? In these cases, it's really symbiotic. It's like the perfect example of symbiotic marketing. So To the extent that you can come close to that, that's really what I think people who don't have a big enough audience should be looking for. Absolutely.
And it's so good that even if technically we're competitive, because you have an agency that services doctors and we do too, I would be thrilled, like we're doing right now, to co-create content with you and then just drive leads to you, because it's a win for us. Because when you have a JV, you're sharing in the content creation and the traffic, and we have an audience and you have an audience, so we'll co-promote across that, just like this episode for eMarketers and us. But also in the servicing of the lead, we can just drive it to you, and then you guys rev share back to us, pay us a couple %, and we're happy about that. Then then our agency doesn't even have to service them, and we just send them to you. Or we have other folks where they want to drive the leads because they have the relationships. Like Dr. Glenveaux runs Nifty Thrifty Dental. He's a dentist, very successful, but he's got 32,000 dentists that follow him, but he doesn't want to run an agency. So we co-create content, and then we rev share back to him because we're doing the servicing of those leads. So the creation and the marketing and the teaching is separate from the actual servicing, SaaS, monthly retainer, that kind of thing. It can be either way. It can be one or both, or, what I mean? There's different ways of doing it. So you can look at where you create the most value and just partner on the pieces that you don't want to do.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that going back to the first question or the first statement we had, which is philosophy, right? The philosophy about partnering and cooperating and everybody wins, I think it's a through that philosophy continues through everything you're doing. And I think it's what people should take away really from this, is that competition is sort of an overused word, right? And it has negative connotation attached to it, but the reality is partnership and co-opetition often ends up winning the day.
Yeah.
Cool.
Amen.
Well, I'd love to hear what you're excited about for the next year, because one other word I associate you is you're always excited. So what are you excited about for next year, or for the upcoming year? Are there sort of any new platforms coming out, any new strategies that you look forward to testing? There's always a new shiny object, half of which don't work, right? So, but some of them obviously do work, and so the things coming down the pike that you're excited about testing or excited about using.
Full disclosure, so we have a course on TikTok ads with TikTok. TikTok reached out to us, but Snapchat did too. So we're competing on that. So we're always trying out the latest things. I don't think everyone should just jump on the bandwagon of the latest social network. Instead, I think strategically, the bigger direction, because every year there's going to be another social network as they age out, and there's a younger one that comes out, new tools. I look at 10 different software tools every day. People say, hey, Dennis, do you get that too, Kevin? People's like, hey, have you checked out this tool? I'm like, I have never seen this tool, but wow, it looks pretty cool. I just don't have enough time. I could spend 3 careers just looking at all the new tools that come out. But then strategically, here's what I'm thinking. Now everyone's a personal brand because of all of these social networks, and thus the business card is replaced with the resume. The resume is replaced with your social profile. The social profile is replaced with your book, right? Because everyone's now has a book, and then the book is being replaced with the course, right?
Right.
So there's this evolution of, because now everyone's putting books out there, right? And so everyone's going to, lightly congratulate so-and-so on their book so that they'll say good things about your book, right? So everyone has a book, and most people never read those books because they're garbage. It's really just a business card, right? You know what I mean? Yeah. You get ghostwriters. You can pay someone on Upwork $500 to write your book, do a title, publish it to ISBN. Like, you actually are a real expert author, this sort of thing. But most people, there's an increasing amount of trash. The number of books that have been published, someone gave me I think it was Chandler Bolt, said in the last year, or there's 2 million books in print or something like that. In the last year, there have been that many, so more than all the books that have been published in all time in the last year, right? But in the last year, there have been more books published than there were in all time prior to that.
Right.
Does that surprise you?
That does surprise me, but the book publishing has become frictionless. It used to be that an actual publisher with an actual editor needed to approve your book before it would get published.
Yeah, but now anyone can self-publish. Anyone can declare and say they have a podcast. So I believe, not that I want to contribute to the mess, but I believe that everyone who has some kind of expertise in some area should publish a book. And even if they're not number one in that area, because you can always look, I'm not going to write a book on SEO or PPC because Kevin Lee, I can't compete with that. Well, you know what? Just interview all those other people. because they don't have the time to put together this whole thing. So you just do, 10, 30-minute podcasts and run it through Fiverr, transcribe it. I run it through Descript, and then I have Fiverr and other people use that for the video and audio editing and that kind of thing. And then run it through Design RR to be able to turn it into book format, but Premiere and all these other tools. You have a book on a course at the same time. I think that's what I think that's the trend in the next 4 or 5 years, is anyone who has some kind of expertise, they're going to be a micro expert publishing courses and books. Courses and books are the same thing. A book's the outline and text, and the course is the video format, just basically taking the same thing. And you see this whole creator economy. So this whole thing with social networks and YouTube is trying to jump. Facebook's trying to jump on it. They're trying to allocate $1 billion to pay creators. There are all these people that are experts or entertainers that are creating content in micro niche areas because the friction's gone down, like you said. And I think all of us have to jump on that, not because we want to be entertainers or influencers or have 2 million TikTok followers, but because that's the future of marketing. And if it's not interesting and engaging, and if it's not on video, then if you're talking to people that are under 40, you're not going to be able to reach them. If your audience is only over 40, then just completely disregard everything that Kevin and I are talking about. But if you do have customers that are under 40, then you're going to have to deal with social media and video and influencing. I'm not saying you have to sing and dance everything you do, or everything has to be emojis and you can't be serious, because in B2B, you're serious. You're not going to be singing and dancing when you're selling industrial equipment for $200,000, right? But the idea that you still need to publish a book or a course around that topic has now become so frictionless and is so important for authority that you can literally, and we've done this many times, you can literally take a 1-hour webinar, bullet points, and turn that into a book and a course, right?
Yeah.
A 1-hour webinar, because all you have to do is show up, write the outline, film the webinar, have decent audio and this decent lighting or something, right? Hire someone on SmartShoot for $100 to set it up for you, right? It's basically Craigslist for freelance people that do photo, video stuff. And then you go to Fiverr and have them publish and edit the whole thing for $300 or $500 or $1,000 if you want to do like a really good job. And now you have an incredible piece of authority. You have a lead magnet. You have a video you can chop up into lots and lots of little snippets. You can distribute that across social media. You can have your virtual assistant in the Philippines or your marketing assistant, promote that and boost it for $1 a day and all that kind of stuff. But it all comes from that one piece. It's like this one master webinar that's based on the topics that you care about. It features, you interview your customers or partners or whatever. And then you, as the busy marketer that doesn't have any time or budget, you just have to build this one asset. And then everything else gets, then you don't have to worry about, oh, Kevin, did you know there's this new social network? Yeah, well, I'm just going to take my big asset and have my VAs chop it up and repurpose it for that asset. Oh, but it's only on audio. Okay, great. I'll take this asset. I'll take the audio only and I'll push it to, so I see the more social networks there are, that's just more distribution. It doesn't change the fact that we have to create long form video content and chop it up. I see the production of the content separate from the distribution and amplification of the content. Right. That's where I see the more noise is over here, the more important it is to make sure this is really solid as part of this greatest hits model.
As a final comment, it's that's like the have versus the have-nots, right? So if you're in a competitive set and your competition has all of this social proof and they have all of this great content, that's the tiebreaker, right? To your earlier point about the chiropractor, right? That's the tiebreaker. You're going to go with the one who has the content, even if it's not a great production quality. The fact that they went through the trouble to do it is a huge differentiator. And so, we used to talk about it in search, like if you're not in the SERP, you're invisible. Exactly. Now that's moved to social, right? If you're not in social, you might have been visible, but you're going to lose the person because they might come in through search, but then there's no sort of supporting social proof, right? In the other search result, they went to that one. There was a ton of social proof, and they're like, okay, well, I'm going to go with this one. They look more legit. They look more authentic, right? And that's going to become the differentiator. So
absolutely, it couldn't be more. What you just said, that's the summary of this whole thing. Is you need to be visible. The number one problem I see plaguing B2B and startups is they're invisible. They're just not even being seen. So even if you make some content, it could be crappy content, you're going to win. Look, how many times do you log into the Google Analytics of a client? It could be a startup or B2B or whatever it is, and you look and you see they have no traffic, or they have just some brand traffic on people searching for the company name, just like a couple visits a day. That's a huge missed opportunity. I think literally creating, I'm not saying create garbage content, but literally write down 10 bullet points of things that you care about, the most common issues that your salespeople talk to about customers, or the things like whatever it is, differentiating factors, just write those down, set up a camera or your cell phone or whatever it is, and literally just make a 1 hour video. Just do that once a month and distribute that. And then make sure you have to pay. So you have to pay LinkedIn, you have to pay Twitter, you have to pay Facebook, just boost it for $1 a day or $10 a day. And I think that is more valuable than hiring a really fancy agency. I think if you literally start from there, and if you do hire an agency, you do this, then you have a head start. But I think you literally do that. Like, look at your competitors. The odds are they're not even doing that. So you're going to be ahead of them, even if you don't do a great job.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been fantastic, Dennis. I'm pleased we both had the time to squeeze this in on a Friday afternoon, and look forward to catching up again soon.
Kevin, you're a legend, man. Anytime.
Thanks so much.